할렐루야, 안녕하십니까? 마도회 목사입니다. 오전에 설교를 제가 다시 한번 동영상을 보니까 다른 부분은 괜찮은데 그 동영상 부분에 소리가 안 나서 설교 들으시는 분들이 이해를 잘 못하셨을 것 같아서 제가 오늘 오후에 교회 다시 와서 음향을 다시 조절하고 오늘 설교 중에서 동영상 부분만 다시 모아서 이렇게 보내드리려고 합니다. 관심이 있으신 분들은 이 동영상으로 그 중요한 내용들을 다시 한번 보셨으면 좋겠습니다. 고맙습니다.
La mayor parte de los habitantes del planeta se declaran creyentes. Esto debería provocar un diálogo entre las religiones. No debemos dejar de orar por él y colaborar con quienes piensan distinto.
Confío en Buda.
Creo en Dios.
Creo en Jesucristo.
Creo en Dios, Alá.
Muchos piensan distinto, sienten distinto, buscan a Dios o encuentran a Dios de diversa manera. En esta multitud, en este abanico de religiones, hay una sola certeza que tenemos para todos. Todos somos hijos de Dios.
Creo en el amor.
Creo en el amor.
Creo en el amor.
Creo en el amor.
Confío en vos para difundir mi petición de este mes. Que el diálogo sincero entre hombres y mujeres de diversas religiones conlleve frutos de paz y justicia. Confío en tu oración.
The Sanhedrin asks Putin and Trump to build the third temple in Jerusalem. The Sanhedrin, this is incredible. The Sanhedrin is calling on Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President-elect Donald Trump to join forces and fulfill their biblically mandated rules by rebuilding the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. Rabbi Hillel Wise, spokesman for the Sanhedrin, contacted Breaking Israeli News to announce that the election of Trump, who has promised to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, coupled with Putin's expressed desire for a temple to rebuild, promoted the Jewish court, the Sanhedrin, to send a letter to both of these people, offering the two the opportunity to act. Here we go. This is from the Sanhedrin in Israel, from Breaking Israeli News. They sent the letters to these two men, and in the letter it said, "We want to afford you the opportunity to act as modern-day Cyrus figures." As modern-day Cyrus figures, non-Jewish kings who recognize the importance of Israel and the temple.
The Jewish sage Maimonides from the 12th century said throughout the first and second temples there were 9 red heifers. He said the 10th would signal the appearance of the Messiah. That's why many are excited about this arrival. These are the red heifers that landed at Israel's Ben Gurion Airport. Rabbis believe the ashes of a red heifer are necessary for purifying priests to serve in a future temple. The heifers were discovered and brought to Israel with the help of the Bonei Israel Building Israel organization. This began an in-depth process of finding the rare heifer that meets key stipulations found in the Bible.
The Bible gives us a clue as to the significance of the red heifers here in Numbers chapter 19, verse 1 and 2, where it says that God spoke to Moses and Aaron saying, "This is the ritual law that God has commanded, instruct the children of Israel to bring you a red cow without blemish, in which there is no defect, and on which no yoke has been laid." So it says that we're supposed to take a perfectly red cow with no white hairs or dark hairs at all, and a cow that no yoke has ever been on. So as a result, it's very, very rare to find a baby cow that is completely red. Once we have the red heifer, we'll be completely pure, and we'll be able to rebuild the temple.
And they will be the first one in 2,000 years.
According to those working on the project, the ceremony of the red heifer needs to be performed on the Mount of Olives and in a place that would have looked directly into where the temple stood. The land I'm standing on, bought 12 years ago, fits both of those standards.
It's had to be exactly at the front, a place that the priest that made this ceremony can see the Holy of the Holy Place.
Rabbi Yitzhak Mamo owns the land here on the Mount of Olives.
And we hope that in a year and a half from today, we can make here in this area the ceremony of the red heifer. That actually will be the first step to the temple.
Mamo says the ceremony needs priests who have not been defiled by touching anything dead.
The Temple Institute actually have 9 pure priests. They didn't born in hospital, okay, they born at home. Because they are priests, so anyway they don't go to any cemetery. And the parents keep them in a situation that they will not get to any cemetery, not going to any problematic place, and they are pure, and they are waiting. So we have the priest, we have the red heifer, we have the land, and we have everything ready. We just need to wait another 1.5 years.
So we believe that it's very likely that the ceremony would happen somewhere in the area of Passover 2024 out to possibility of Shavuot 2024. Somewhere in that timeline, the cows would be old enough, and it would be the proper timeline for that ceremony.
The globalization.
Okay.
It's to walk one God on Temple Mount.
Would you say it's more of a one world temple for the whole world?
It will not be never one religion. It will be nations.
Okay.
Muslims, I'm talking about the high, let's say, rank or hierarchy in the Muslim religions came to us and asked us, please build a temple. Why? Because the temple is for everybody, it's for the whole nations to prosper and thrive. So they came to us and asked, please build a temple. Now, the problem is with the radicals. Whenever everybody will support building the third temple, then everybody will prosper, because this is what the temple is for the whole world.
Well, Hashem will be a king, the one king, and we will unite the whole world. So yes.
So you see that Jacob and Esau reuniting in the last days, so Muslims and Jews and Christians would be part of this one world, including some Kabbalistic and Eastern influences, all into one kind of religion in this temple. Is that?
I won't call it one kind of religion and one kind of understanding.
So you think that there could be some union between all the religions as part of this?
Absolutely. We already have unity, but everybody's afraid from the terrorists. But okay, so this is our job, to unify everybody to worship the only true living God in the third temple with all the nations that will worship God. In the U.S., there are 30,000 denominations of Christianities. So, according to what we received, part of them will be part of the redemption, part of them no. It's very, very simple. So, whomever will accept to be exactly as the nations, whomever will come as a person to come to be to worship God, he will be part of the redemption. As simple as.
Once we're fully digital in our currency, that'll mean the government will be able to track absolutely every bloody thing you ever do, and also be able to do things like they're already doing in China. So the Chinese government has put expiry dates on some digital currency. So they, if they need to have the population spend more, let's say because there is a recession, they could just put in an edict that would make sure that your money depreciated by 2% every month, so that would be an impetus to spending. And they could do the reverse if they wanted you to save. And so it means in potential the emergence of a system for comprehensive control that's so complete that we can barely imagine it. And, we might say, well, isn't that paranoid? And I would say, look, we still think we were in a What we were really in was an epidemic of imitating the Chinese communists. You know, we thought when we integrated China into the world economy that the Chinese would turn into a Western democracy. But what's happening instead, I would say, is that because we've invited the Chinese to the table, we're turning into the CCP. Yeah, and people are certainly not, and we're doing it under the guise of this idiot protect the virginal planet environmentalism that's all motivated by this, what would you say, fear-mongering apocalypse.
But what does central bank digital currency look like? You see? So they never talk about that because people won't actually like the looks of it.
Yeah.
Because it apparently looks, and several central banks apparently, as I heard from my sources, have already fully developed the final stage of CBDC. I mean, it comes in stages, initially likely through your mobile phone, but that's only an intermediate step. And the final stage is, you know, it's small, and it's the size of a grain of rice. They've already now moved to the system, you know, RFID chips, RFID technology where you just wave the thing, contactless.
Yes.
That is sort of the you know, conditioning us in this direction. That in the future you'll just wave your hand because you've got the microchip implant under your skin. But you can lose your card. Somebody can steal your card, and then you're just waving. That's kind of risky. Well, wouldn't it be nice if you couldn't lose it and nobody could steal it? You know. So, but it's clear that that's sort of, it is almost a step too far for a lot of people because it is a violation of human dignity to actually inject something like that under the skin. So that's where you need some more persuasion.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that this concept of universal basic income has been around for around a century, where everyone should get some kind of citizens, you know, payment. But the billionaire elites have so far not liked that. But since 2015, they've all come out. I mean, all the big billionaires and World Economic Forum have come out. Oh, this is a good idea. Universal basic income. Well, why suddenly now? Because now we have the technology for the microchip implant. And so in 2017, Bill Gates came out and said that universal basic income is a good idea, but it's too early to introduce it. Now, what was still missing? So we had the technology for the microchip implant, but what was missing was the digital ID hadn't been introduced. Now, this is where this whole agenda had become very useful.
Those transaction data in terms of how many coffee I drink every day, where I buy coffee, do I use Uber every day, and what kind of working hours I have. Those non-traditional data can be very useful for financial service providers to give me a credit score. And based on a credit score, the financial service provider give me a credit line without any face-to-face due diligence.
If you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential gains. It's not just about digital forms of physical currency. You can have programmability, you know, units of central bank currency with expiry dates. You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it as a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable.
We tend to establish the equivalence with cash, and there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
Should you be looking into it seriously? Just what are your thoughts on CBDC?
I mean, as my colleagues at the Federal Reserve have talked about, we are examining it. I'll tell you, my personal bias is I'm pretty skeptical. I keep asking anybody at the Fed or outside of the Fed to explain to me what problem this is solving. I can send anybody in this room $5 with Venmo right now. Right? No, seriously. So what is it that a CBDC could do that Venmo can't do? And all I get is a bunch of hand waving. I get a bunch, well, maybe it's better for financial inclusion. Maybe it's better for cross-border remittances. Maybe. Is there any evidence that it is? And, they say, well, what about China? China's doing it. Well, I can see why China would do it. If they want to monitor every one of your transactions, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. If you want to impose negative interest rates, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. And if you want to directly tax customer accounts, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. So I get why China would be interested. Why would the American people be for that? So anyway, I've said I think the crypto space broadly is 95% noise, hype, and confusion. I'm leaving open the 5% possibility that something useful could come from it. I'm still waiting.
I think it'd be a total disaster. Sometimes government does things that may appear to be benevolent, but really are kind of like a wolf in sheep's clothing. This is a wolf coming as a wolf.
The media make it sound like it's a great thing.
Well, if you don't care about your privacy and you want government to have even more control over the economy, then maybe it is. But if you don't trust central authority, then you should see this immediately as something that is very problematic.
But a lot of people do trust central authority. I'll read from the President's executive order on responsible development of digital assets. This will protect consumers, investors, and the environment.
That last one's a tell, because I think they would impose certain criteria. You're filling up too much tank of gas. Wait a minute, climate change, you can't be doing that. You bought another firearm? No.
And if you do buy or do the wrong thing, they can easily cut off your money.
If I am the president on day one, we will nix central bank digital currency. Done.
And once they have digitalized our currency and gotten rid of the cash economy, they have absolute control over us, because they'll be able to tax every transaction, but also they'll be able to enforce obedience. Because if you're disobedient, they'll be able to shut down your bank account and starve you.
도널드 트럼프 미국 전 대통령은 현지 시간 17일 연방준비제도의 디지털 화폐 발행을 불허하겠다면서 그들이 여러분의 돈을 가져갈 수 있기 때문이라는 주장을 폈습니다. 블룸버그 통신 등에 따르면 트럼프 전 대통령은 이날 밤 뉴햄프셔 유세에서 여러분의 대통령이 된다면 나는 결코 중앙은행의 디지털 화폐 발행을 허용하지 않겠다며 이같이 말했습니다. 그는 그런 화폐는 연방정부가 여러분의 돈을 절대적으로 통제하게 할 것이라며 그들은 여러분의 돈을 가져갈 수 있고 여러분은 그게 사라졌는지조차 할 수 없을 것이라고 주장했습니다. 그러면서 자신은 정부의 포갑에서 미국인들을 보호하고 싶다고도 덧붙였습니다. 이 같은 발언은 트럼프 전 대통령이 지난 15일 공화당 대선 후보 첫 경선지인 아이오와 코커스에서 득표율 51%를 따내며 파죽지세를 시작한 가운데 나온 것입니다. 공화당 경선 2위권인 론 디센티스 플로리다 주지사도 디지털 화폐에서 트럼프 전 대통령과 비슷하게 반대 입장입니다. 연준은 디지털 달러 발행안을 검토하는 단계로 의회 등의 지지가 없으면 이를 진척시키지 않겠다는 입장입니다.
이창용 한국은행총재가 이제 중앙은행 디지털 화폐 도입 논의는 더 이상 미룰 수 없는 시급성을 지닌 중요한 과제가 됐다고 강조했습니다. 이어 경제 디지털화는 피할 수 없는 흐름이라며 미래는 빠르게 변화하고 중앙은행도 가만히 앉아서 기다리기보다는 민간과 같이 경쟁하면서 기술적, 제도적으로 새로운 디지털 환경에 대비해야 한다고 전했습니다.
산업과 산업 간의 융합의 시대다라고 생각을 하고 있고요. 그게 다른 말로 딜이지 않습니까? 새로운 딜, 뉴딜. 산업 간의 융복합화 시대에 아주 기본적인 그런 인프라를 지금 우리가 구축하고 만들고 시범 서비스를 하고 있다라고 저는 생각을 하고 있고요. 이 디지털 신분증이 잘 적응하고 활용될 수 있도록 국민들한테 또한 많은 홍보가 됐으면 하는 게 제 개인적인 생각입니다.
선글라스를 낀 중국 경찰입니다. 여느 선글라스와 다를 바 없이 보이지만 안면인식 기술이 담긴 스마트 안경입니다. 스마트 안경을 쓰고 군중을 훑어보면 2, 3초 내에 지명수배범 얼굴을 인식해 경찰 데이터와 대조합니다. 이달 초 도입 이후 인신매매범과 뺑소니범 등 벌써 용의자 7명을 체포했습니다. 중국 안면인식 기술은 이미 일상을 파고들었습니다. 얼굴을 인식해 딱 한 번 사용할 만큼의 휴지가 나오는 스마트 화장실도 베이징에 도입됐습니다. 은행권에는 안면인식 현금 인출기가 등장했고 중국 난징령은 수십억이 이동하는 춘절 대이동 기간에 대비해 안면인식 출입 시스템을 도입했습니다. 세계 1위의 기술 수준답게 구분이 어려운 쌍둥이와 분장한 사람까지도 정확하게 구분해낼 정도입니다. 실제 중국은 수억 대의 CCTV로 13억 중국인을 3초 안에 식별하는 데이터베이스를 구축할 예정입니다. 하지만 기술의 발전만큼 인권 침해와 소수민족 탄압에 대한 우려도 함께 커지고 있습니다.
A large convoy of hundreds of angry farmers driving heavy-duty tractors arrived at the European Union headquarters in Belgium today. Now, leaders were meeting in Brussels to discuss financing for Ukraine. Farmers threw eggs and stones at the European Parliament, also set fires in the area to press EU leaders to do more to help them with taxes and rising costs. Similar protests have been held across the EU for most of the week. Farmers blocked traffic arteries across Belgium, France, and Italy this week.
중국에서 실제로 스카이넷이라는 게 존재합니다. CCTV만 4억 대를 깔아놓고요. 사람의 진짜 속마음이 무엇인지 죄다 읽어내려고 하는 건데요. 이 전체주의 사회가 첨단 기술을 만나면 어디까지 개인을 올가맬 수 있는지 지금부터 적나라하게 보여드리겠습니다. 세계를 보다 김인수 기자입니다.
지난해 중국 공산당 창당 100주년 경축대회. 수만 명의 청년 당원들이 당의 청춘을 바치겠다고 맹세합니다. 과연 이들의 충성 맹세는 진짜일까? 중국 국영 연구기관이 답을 내놨습니다. 사상교육을 받는 공산당원의 표정과 뇌파를 포착해 충성도를 측정할 수 있는 인공지능 AI 기술을 개발한 겁니다.
通过判断学习效果，引导科研人员进一步坚定感党恩、听党话、跟党走的信心和决心。
인공지능 기술을 이용한 사상 검증 논란에 해당 영상은 황급히 삭제됐지만 중국 정부는 이미 사회통제 감시망을 겹겹이 쳐놓았습니다. 스마트폰을 신규 개통할 땐 얼굴 인식 등 생체 정보를 등록하는 게 의무입니다. 전 세계 절반가량인 4억 대의 CCTV도 통제에 활용됩니다. 중국 정부는 실시간 영상 감시 시스템 이른바 스카이넷 프로젝트를 가동 중입니다. 공교롭게도 영화 터미네이터에서 인류를 감시하고 추적하는 인공지능 컴퓨터 스카이넷과 이름도 같은데 활동 이력, 복장, 차량, SNS 이용 내역 같은 민감한 개인 정보들을 수집하고 성급하다와 같은 기질 판정까지 내립니다. 심리 상태, 감정까지 판독하고 주변 100m 이내의 소리를 녹음할 수 있는 카메라는 이미 한물간 기술입니다. 홍채와 Y 염색체 등 생체 정보도 수집합니다. 인터넷 감시 체계인 만리 방화벽도 확대해 나가고 있습니다.
If you use WhatsApp or Viber or Telegram, that might be considered suspicious.
안면 인식 AI 분석 기술로 학생들의 수업 태도를 감시하고 뇌파 판독 헬멧을 통해 노동자들의 감정도 실시간 식별합니다.
it's going to make you see the future and understand a wonderful future where we can use brainwaves to fight crime, be more productive, and find love. Let's roll.
You're in the zone. Even you can't believe how productive you've been. Your memo is finished, your inbox is under control, and you're feeling sharper than you have in a decade. Sensing your joy, your playlist shifts to your favorite song, sending chills up your spine as the music begins to play. You mentally move the cursor to the left and scroll through your brain data over the past few hours. You can see your stress levels rising as the deadline to finish your memo approached, causing a peak in your beta brainwave activity right before an alert popped up, telling you to take a brain break. Your mind starts to wander to the new colleague on your team, whom you know you shouldn't be daydreaming about, given the policy against intra-office romance. But you can't help fantasizing just a little. But then you start to worry that your boss will notice your amorous feelings when she checks your brain activity and shift your attention back to the present. You breathe a sigh of relief when the email she sends you later that day congratulates you on your brain metrics from the past quarter, which have earned you another performance bonus. You head home jamming to the music, with your work-issued brain-sensing earbuds still in. When you arrive at work the next day, a somber cloud has fallen over the office. Along with emails, text messages, and GPS location data, the government has subpoenaed employees' brainwave data from the past year.
What do you think? Is it a future you're ready for? You may be surprised to learn that it's a future that has already arrived. Everything in that video that you just saw is based on technology that is already here today. Artificial intelligence has enabled advances in decoding brain activity in ways that we never before thought possible. But I want to talk about it in a different way, which is the ability to decode brainwave activity. After all, what you think, what you feel, it's all just data. Data that in large patterns can be decoded using artificial intelligence. In fact, what you're seeing here is my brain activity while I'm wearing a simple device like the one on the right. We can pick up emotional states like, are you happy or sad or angry? We can pick up and decode faces that you're seeing in your mind. Simple shapes, numbers, your PIN number to your bank account. It's not just your brain activity here that we can pick up. We can also pick up your brain activity in different places, like as your neurons fire from your brain down your arm and send signals to your hand to tell you how to type, move. And that's what you're seeing here is a device now in the form of a simple wearable watch that can pick up that activity. And one of the pivotal acquisitions of the field, Meta acquired this company, Control Labs, in 2019.
아니 근데 제가 머리에 있는 칩에 대고선 무슨 말을 하는 것도 아닌데 그냥 생각만 한다고 해서 그 칩이 제 마음을 어떻게 읽어요?
이게 스마트폰의 지문인식 기능 있잖아요.
네.
그거랑 상당히 비슷하다고 생각하시면 될 것 같고요. 우리가 지문인식 기술을 사용하기 위해서 미리 사용자의 지문을 스마트폰에 등록을 해야 되죠.
예.
그런 다음에 실제로 이제 지문인식 기능을 사용할 때는 입력되고 있는 지문과 이미 등록이 되어 있는 지문을 비교하는 방식으로 지문인식을 하게 되는데요.
맞습니다.
이 BCI 기술도 이하고 비슷하게 미리 사용자가 특정한 생각을 할 때 뇌파를 측정을 해서 데이터베이스에 저장을 해놨다가 실제로 그 사람이 특정한 생각을 하면 그때 발생하는 뇌파하고 데이터베이스에 이미 저장되어 있는 뇌파를 비교를 해서 이 사람이 어떤 생각을 하는구나라는 걸 알아내는 겁니다.
The technology now is, and digital technologies mainly have an analytical power. Now we go into a predictive power, and we have seen the first examples, and your company very much involved into it. But then the next step could be to go into a prescriptive mode, which means you do not even have to have elections anymore because you can already predict what predict, and afterwards you can say, why do we need elections? Because we know what the result will be. Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants, and we measure your brain waves, and I can immediately tell you how the people react, or I can feel how the people react to your